Yeah, I mean, I just had this conversation with a couple of students the other day. I mean, so there's some students that like really like my classes and like the style I teach, and then other students that this it goes too quick, and then it's a lot of time they have to spend outside watching the videos, and it's just that's my style of teaching. If I do it differently, I won't be as effective at giving the information out there. But it really still depends on the student how they process that. So if I go too fast in class for a student, they have two options: either miss the stuff or they have to spend time outside of class kind of rewatching videos and things like that. That just happens to be the style, right? So you take some other teachers, any other teacher, you might have, I mean, there is a such thing as an incompetent teacher, right? That exists. But in general, like in this situation here, you have somebody who says favorite teacher, somebody else says never learned a thing, right? It's a teaching style thing. I happen to know that teacher is competent. So it's not I'm certain he could do the homework. That's what I'm getting at. I'm certain he can do the homework. But I get it. I mean, sometimes just the way somebody explains something, it's just some teachers just start speaking your language, and other teachers they might as be up there speaking Russian or something. It doesn't matter what.
I mean, my thing is like, if he actually taught stuff from the book, that makes sense. But the stuff he teaches in class almost has no correlation to the book.
Well, but in some cases that might actually be okay. Because then you're getting information from two different sources, unless you're somebody like you who doesn't read the book.
Wow, you read the book actually.
Just not all books. Just not. I just don't read all books. And some people learn better from a book, just because they're able to sit there and just reread the paragraph 3 or 4 times and try to process it. And it also just depends on the book. Some books are written with an obvious goal of teaching. Some other books are written by some smart person who wrote it in such a way that it just tried to make them sound smart. And they're hard to follow the book, right? It's just the nature of academics. So, but the particular teacher you're talking about, I mean, I could list some other teachers that I've heard consistent things with and would be problems, but that particular one is I think it's a stylistic thing.
Probably.
Yeah, the way he explains it or whatever just isn't your cup of tea.
Yeah.
Well, and that's okay, but I mean, actually that's even the better example when you have students that typically don't like a certain subject, but really like some teacher from that subject because they just connect with them or something like that. Because everybody thinks computer programming is easy. That's why everybody loves me.
I just sleep yesterday.
What was this? Oh, you didn't sleep yesterday?
No, I was wondering, don't you sleep yesterday? That's kind of daydream.
Oh, this is my daydream. I get it. Really? I thought everybody loves me and thought my classes are simple and.
It's like you have your tests. I'll say that.
Just put it in a quotation mark.
Oh, the
one's better than the other one, so it makes sense.
No, I don't even believe in grades. I think grades are stupid. But we're going to avoid it.
It's all A's.
It wouldn't even matter. I mean, let's say somebody's applying for grad school here. This is something that I've been dealing with a lot recently. So let's say one person's applying with a 2.8 GPA, and another person's applying with a 3.8 GPA. At a glance, you're going to say, oh, well, 3.8 is obviously better, right? What if the 3.8 came from not a joke school, but a less prestigious school? The 2.8 came from an MIT. What does the GPA mean at that point? Right? I mean, it's ridiculous. And, we, with our graduate programs, we have a high percentage of international students, from India. That's why I went to India earlier this semester. I mean, their whole grading system over there is completely different. They don't get points for homework. Everything's exams.
Yeah.
Everything.
You get exam, every single week.
Yeah. And at the end, you just have a percentage. You have a 61% because that's what you got in the exam. Well, as I'm sure there is at least, I'm going to say 25% of you at least perceive that you are not good test takers. You think you do homework well, you think you understand the material, but when you get to an exam, you just don't perform as well on the exams as you feel you understand the material. that's students, right? Sometimes exams aren't them. It's a one-off shot. You have a bad day, you don't feel well, the teacher just asked questions in a weird way and it just wasn't the stuff you studied. All sorts of stuff like that, right? So, I don't know. Grades are just dumb.
It's kind of like when there are like two undefeated teams in like NCAA football. Depends who they beat.
Well, and then if you want to talk sports, then any of these teams on any given day could beat any other team, right? You take the best team in the NFL against the worst team in the NFL. Find the best team is probably going to win a majority of those games. But on any given day, they're professional athletes. That bad team could come up and beat the best team. And if it's on a game that really meant a lot, somebody's out of the playoffs and somebody's going on, right? So it's all these long-term measuring sticks are just dumb. Makes no sense. So if it were up to me, I would just get rid of grades. Just have every class be pass-fail. You either got what you needed out of it or you didn't. Because at the end of the day, who cares what your GPA really is? It's all about getting a job and being good at your job, right? That's the punchline. So, yeah. So whether you like me or not, I do produce people make a lot of money. So, talk to my former student. And then I cherry pick the good ones who continue to work for me.
Your minions.
Well, but I mean, some of you have done some work with me on projects here, but that translates into he showed up to the hackathon this last week. Josh Curcio.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So Josh Curcio works up at Acuity. He was one of our, better CS students. Got a master's degree from here as well. Well, he makes his salary from Acuity, which is substantial, but he works for my company, writing mobile applications on the side. And he makes more doing that than he does at Acuity.
Wow.
Okay, well, that's because he started off doing these projects for me on campus, proved that he was, good at something. So now I can rely on him to, do these projects, which allows me to sell more projects. Because I don't have the time to do it, and I don't want to do it because I'm old and lazy and playing golf.
What's your company?
Well, the one I have left is Awesome Fat LLC. Most of you know my backstory, right? That I've started and sold 6 companies. Yeah, this teaching gig is what I do this is my fun. Oh yeah, I'm retired now. I like teaching. I like teaching young people and sharing my knowledge, and I don't have the energy to stay up and write code all the time anymore. So now I teach and travel and golf and eat. I do too much of the eating is the problem.
Weren't you
Yeah, I used to be a professional eater, yes.
I think I saw a video.
That's where the Awesome Fat name came from. And then when I retired from that, I attached it to a software company. So I used to drive I sold the company in 2014, but I still have the LLC, so I do it as a consulting company now. But when I was actively doing it, I would drive around town with my car, would have Awesome Fat logos all over it and stuff like that. And, people would come up and stop me in parking lots and say, what's this all about? But, their assumption was it was some sort of diet pill or something like that until they see me get out of the car. It's like, dude, it ain't working. that is not working. And I say, no, I'm actually just too short. At 9.5 feet tall, I'm average weight. I'm waiting for my growth spurt.
Just drive a monster truck to school.
All my cars are usually pretty large.
But if you're 9 feet tall, then you could.
That's true. Yeah, it's just higher. Just higher. Well, but I mean, at that point, it's pretty custom, so they can just make a higher roof, right? Or just take the roof off and just be all roll cage.
Buggy.
Yeah, I was that's true. Yeah.
You mean the cab in a semi truck?
Yeah.
They're bigger.
Yeah, they're huge.
Maybe that's what I got to get next. And get a customized semi. I mean, I don't want to drag a whole trailer, but I know you can get just a semi front. Then you can probably get a little like kind of like a wagon thing on the back of it, and have some like seats and stuff. So you're driving. I mean, I guess that's probably something like those vans that they drive you from hotels to airports and stuff like that. Except with a lot more horsepower, I assume, and a lot worse gas mileage. I don't need that kind of horsepower. I'm not like I don't speed. Yeah. I sped years ago. One time I got a ticket for going 105 and a 40.
Why were you on that fast?
I was young. I was 18, I think, and I was on my way to pick up my girlfriend and my wife now. But yeah. So it took the cop 15 miles to catch me, and I'm sitting at like a long red light. And he finally pulls up behind me because this was on Route 45 in near Champaign, Illinois. And so I'm sitting in this long red light, and he pulls up. I mean, I think I'm a bright enough person. I pretty much knew I was caught. So I think that's why he didn't take me away in cuffs. He came up and he said, "It's like, do you know how fast you were going?" I said, "Really depends on when you got me." He said, "I got you at 105 and a 40. And I was like, "Okay, sounds right." I was going faster than that a couple. He got me right at the beginning of my takeoff.
What vehicle were you driving?
My brother's like brand new Hyundai turbocharger thing. Now, in my defense, that was hard to keep under the speed limit, but not hard to keep under 105. So that scared me. But I was a good student and had a lawyer and got it. So the ticket was actually written for reckless homicide, which was driving with the intent to kill. Okay, so you got this 18-year-old kid. I'm just scared to death. I'm going to lose my license forever and all this stuff. So, but I was a good student. So the lawyer got a plea bargain down to a non-moving violation, like driving with unsafe equipment or something like that. And then I had to pay some big fine, and my dad made me, my dad was a dentist, so he could have paid the fine, but I had to pay it, and that was a major impact to me. $1,800 or something like that.
A lot more today.
Yeah, this was before you were a thing. Like you probably were. Well, you're a little older, right? So you might. Were you? This would have been in 1996-ish. Okay. Yeah, but most of you were not born in 96. Yeah, so it's before most of you were things. Yeah, but now I don't speed. I just set the cruise control at whatever the thing is, and I listen to my audiobooks.
How is it like a reckless homicide? Because you're driving fast?
Well, I think I was driving so fast in an area. I mean, it would be like equivalent of going through like a residential area at that speed. Yeah. Eventually, you're going to hit somebody or something. A dog, whatever, you're going to hit something.
Yeah, a squirrel.
Yeah. I don't know. Certainly taught me my lesson. Because I don't speed anymore. All right, so let's talk about the quiz. Singleton, what is it? It's a good idea to store data in a single place that needs to be accessed from more than, you could say more than one place, but really we say the good rule of thumb is more than 2 other locations. All right, so when will we use it? We'd use it to maybe share data between multiple screens in our Android application, something along those lines. Okay, and what was the alternative to a singleton that we looked at last time?
Extra.
Yeah, extras, which are part of the intents, right? So intents kind of come with their own luggage. All right, so let's look at this homework assignment. What was the assignment?
13 strings.
Rot 13 of an entire string, right? Okay. So you could be using this. Doesn't this look way more difficult? This is it is. Yeah, this is an ARM assembly interpreter that we wrote in assembly, or that we wrote in Android. So this is a low-level language interpreter for written in a high-level language. So this is where you can put stuff into memory. This is where you can set your hardware registers here. See, this assignment could have been way worse. Right, and you're in 325, so like this was his assignment for today.
So I'm not done with it.
Yeah, still has to read the 200-page book. Huh?
I can totally read that.
I'm sure you can totally read it, but you're not really going to comprehend it, and your paper's going to suck.
Oh, probably. I don't deny that.
So obviously, I have a lot of faith in you.
Yes, clearly.
Because clearly, as long as we're on the same page.
Still on page 1, right?
I don't think you've even gotten to page 1. He doesn't know.
I do know the name of the book. Has Christianity in America fit?
That's actually pretty good. I typically do not know the name of the book I'm currently listening to in my audiobooks. I fired because I have hundreds of books that I've like pre-purchased because I'm a member of Audible.
Okay, use this.
Yeah. And I've trained myself to listen to them at triple speed. So you know how like on like YouTube you could like increase the speed of a video and it like starts sounding like chipmunks? Okay. Yeah. I listen to my books at triple speed.
You understand?
100%. It's ridiculous. I had to do it over years. I've been listening to these audiobooks for years. I've sent like 5,000 audiobooks on there. And because I don't listen to music at all. I only listen to books. And so you start off and you listen to it normal speed. And that was kind of good enough. Then I went to like 1.2 or something. I've built myself up to 3, and I can understand it like perfectly clear. No problem at all. In fact, if I listen to it at normal speed now, it sounds like they're in like super slow-mo. So like I've rewired my brain. It's like machine learning type thing from, I've rewired my brain to understand incredibly fast speech. Because I listen to it while I'm golfing and stuff like that, like no problem. And somebody will get into the car if I pick them up and I still have my book on. And it just sounds like it's like scribbled noise, you know. But I usually don't even know the name of the book I'm listening to because I get through an entire book in a day and a half of just random driving. Just because it's zipping right through. Like I just started another book this morning. I don't even know what it's about yet. But I'm in chapter 4. And I did that in my 12-minute drive from my house.
How do you even hear like the ambulances and police coming by? Do you use a pole?
Well, you see that stuff.
Well, if it's coming from behind.
Well, you have mirrors.
You make it fast.
All right, so let's see where we left off with this guy. So I think I have one screen that just does a single conversion, right? And I have you going to another screen that just proves how you can send some stuff to that screen, something like that. And then I said maybe write this code on that second screen. Run! Is it running? It's running. All right, so I can go to my second page here, just passes some information across, and I have like a big text field that I can type stuff into. So probably what we'd want to do is have a big thing where we can type some text in here, have a button that converts all the text down to something else. Something like that? Okay, so let's go ahead, and this is that second screen. So I'm going to here's my output ET. So I'm going to create a second one of these guys. Drag it above there. I'll call this guy input ET. All right, so this is the guy that you'll type your string into. And then this is the guy that will output that encoded string. Okay, and all this is inside of a vertical linear layout. And I'll go ahead and squeeze this here. I'll make this 200 by 200 just to give it some size. Realistically, we would maybe use layout weights to give it something. So I can do this as I can have this as a layout weight of like 0.1, and this has a layout weight of 0.45 and a layout weight of 0.45. So if you use layout weights like this, so I've made basically this guy is 10% of the screen and the other two are each 45% of the screen. So you can use layout weights to do that type of thing, but that's just more interface design crap. You can just just give it a size so it fits for your homework. Go ahead.
I have a general question.
Yep.
So, where you have the CSC250 Android starter, mine says my application. Where do you make that?
Oh, so when you first started your project, so this project is called CSC250 Android Starter.
Okay.
That's what this guy is actually called. You can, if you do want to change it, and I've referenced this before, if you go into resources, you go into values, you go into strings XML, here's that app name. So you can change it to like LOL or something like that. Brand new app name. Then when you come back here, it's now LOL.
Wait, can you say it again?
It's under resources. So same place where your layouts are.
Okay.
So it's in resources and there's a folder in there called values.
Oh.
And inside there's a strings XML. This is like a place where you can like hard code strings that you might want to use in multiple places of your app, kind of like the application name. And it's going to have my first app or something in there for you right now. You can change it to whatever you want in there, and then it'll automatically update into your other screens. All right. But the way it originally got set is by the name of your project. However, I think the default name is my first project or something when you create an app. I kind of like LOL up there, but it might be a little misleading. So let's call this guy ROT13 converter LOL. All right. There we go. ROT13 converter LOL. Okay, so I've just shown you kind of a way you can lay stuff out relative. So I made this guy 10% of the screen size by setting his layout weight to 0.1, 10%. Input ET, I have his layout weight at 0.45, 45%. The other guy is 0.45, 45%, 45 plus 45 is 90, plus 10 is 100, so now I'm taking up the whole screen. All right, but actually I'm going to need a button here in the middle. So I'm going to go ahead and make these guys a little bit smaller. I'm going to make these guys, let's do 40 by 40. And then I'll throw a button here in the middle between these guys. I'm actually going to put the button at the top. And part of that's because when you click on something, the keyboard will lift up and it'll kind of block it. So you won't be able to see it that well, but and I'll make the layout weight of the button. It already gave it its 0.1. That's what was left over. And I'll just call this guy convert, something like that. All right, so the idea is that we type some stuff in here, click convert, and it shows the ROT13 version of it down there. Sound reasonable? All right, just for testing purposes, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give myself a starter string inside of here, just so I don't have to type something every single time I want to test it. So let's see. What do I want to put in there? Let's go look up a knock-knock joke. I would look up some like My Little Pony fan fiction, maybe.
No.
Yeah, but some of those they have some questionable stuff in there. You know, it's a whole thing.
I've heard about it.
Yeah, there's like a whole group of like what are they called, bronies or something like that.
Oh my god.
It's a thing, yeah.
It scares me.
Knock-knock jokes.
Ridiculous.
Jokes for kids. Let's go with that one. That way it'll be clean. All right, here we go. We'll just use this for this first one. Ash you. Who's there? Ash. Ash who? Bless you. That's not that funny. Dr. Locklear would probably put on a slide to laugh. Tell you to laugh because he has to tell you to laugh at his jokes. Huh? You don't get the joke? So when somebody sneezes, it's like, achoo! Right? So his name is Ash. Ashu. Ashu. All right, so never a good joke if you have to explain it. All right, so there I put my knock knock joke in there, and I'll go ahead and set the gravity in this guy to top. And I'll set the gravity down here to top as well. All right, so the idea is whatever you have in here, you hit convert, it's going to read this in, it's going to convert it to ROT 13 and write it out here. Right? Okay, and this guy is called input ET, this guy is called output ET, so we need access to both of those dudes in our code. And this is called, ROT 13 large text activity, this guy. So I already have output ET. I'll get private edit text input ET. And then we'll go ahead and grab these two dudes. Input ET is equal to the edit text version of this dot find view by ID r dot ID dot input ET. All right, so now I have access to those two guys. Okay, now I need to go ahead and give myself some code that gets executed when I click my button. So we'll say public void convert button pressed. This takes a view v as a parameter. Now I need to import this guy. What's the shortcut on this? We'll just do this. Yeah. Okay. Then we need this guy to say something, but for right now, I'm going to just go ahead and have it read in from input and set output just to prove that all my pipes are hooked up. All right, so I'll say this dot output ET dot set text to this dot input ET dot get text. All right. So just setting this stuff. I'm going to delete that in a minute anyways, just making sure I have access to all my stuff and this button works. So I'll go out to my ROT 13 thing here. I'll hit convert. I'll go to my on click. I'll choose my convert button pressed. Make sure you press enter on that guy so it locks in. All right, this guy's called input ET. This guy's called output ET. So when I click this button, it's going to read the text from here and spit it out here. All right, let's make sure that's what it currently does. Coffee was so hot today too after chapel. Oh my gosh, I was surprised it wasn't boiling. I drink a lot of coffee, so I have like calluses on my tongue. And it was hot for me. All right, so this guy already has some stuff in here. I hit convert, it just puts the stuff down there. All right, but now what we wanted to do is we wanted to convert that stuff into other stuff. Okay, so we're going to do this through ROT 13. Now, what I'm going to do, we have this core 2 thing. Oh, I was showing you last time what the other way a singleton gets created if you use the singleton thing built into Android Studio, which I don't like. So I'm going to delete that core 2 thing. We're just going to use core, the one I wrote. So let's go in here and hit delete. All right. So now inside of main activity, I already have a ROT 13 function, right? I'm going to go ahead and copy that function. Actually, our best version of this, I think, was ROT 13.3. So I'm going to take this function And since I already have buttons on this screen that use it locally, I'm going to, actually, I'll steal this one. And then I'm just going to delete these other ones and we'll fix our code in here. All right, so we'll get rid of all these. Now, as of right now, I actually have two different screens that would benefit from ROT13, right? I have my current screen that converts one character, and then I have a second screen that we're about to write that converts entire sentences. But both of those would benefit from ROT13. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put ROT13 in my singleton so I can access it from both of those places. So I'll come into my singleton, paste that in there, make it static. And I'll go ahead and just change it to ROT13 instead of ROT13_3. So now back here in main activity, it's upset that I don't have a ROT13_3. But I do have one in here. Class method or instance method? Class method. How do you know? How do you call class methods? Using the name of the class in which the method was defined. What's the name of the class this method was defined in? Core. So I'll say core dot ROT13. Core dot ROT13. So I just moved my ability into the singleton, so now I can access it from anywhere in my program. Make sense? All right, go ahead.
So, like in your singleton, don't you have to take out, or at least mine's trying to error with, that we put it as static and then you're returning a value?
Well,
Or are you still returning a char?
Still returning a char. Yeah, I'm still, it's not void. I'm still returning a char. It's everything, it's the exact same function I did before. I just changed its name from ROT13_3 to just ROT13 and threw static in front of it. By me making it static, I said core now owns it. So anywhere in my program I want to call this guy, I say core.ROT13. And that will allow me to convert one number to, or one character to another character. Okay. Now, we do have a little weakness right now in our ROT13, because I mentioned ROT13 for our assignment should work for upper and lowercase letters, right? And it should avoid or ignore anything that wasn't either a upper or lowercase. So commas should say commas, spaces should say spaces, and so on and so forth. All right. So I'm going to call this guy alpha upper. And then we're going to have a string alpha lower. And alpha lower is going to be alpha upper dot two lowercase. There's a two lowercase instance method of the string class that will convert that to all lowercase. Alternatively, you could have just written the alphabet in all lowercase. All right. This is a nice quick way of just converting it. So I have two different variables, alpha upper and alpha lower. First one, I hard-coded the uppercase alphabet. Second one, I just converted that guy to lowercase using a built-in method. All right, so now when character C is passed in, I want to convert him if he's either in alpha upper or in alpha lower. Otherwise, I want to leave him alone. Okay, so I'm going to say if. Now, how do I determine if C is inside of alpha upper?
Use the index.
Use index of and check against what?
Checks again the thing. So if it's split out the -1, that means it's not in there.
Perfect. -1. Remember way back when I first introduced index of? I said kind of the most important part of it is the knowledge that it returns a -1 when something wasn't found. So I can use it as a search tool. So I'm going to say if alpha upper dot index of C is not equal to -1. That means it is a uppercase char, so convert it. So I'll steal this. and I'll convert it off of alpha upper. Make sense? So if C is an uppercase letter, that means when I look for C inside of uppercase, if it gives me something other than -1, that means it found it. And if it found it in uppercase, I'll go ahead and return the converted value from uppercase. Go ahead.
I don't really understand the -1.
Let's say I have this string right here, and I'm searching for a C. This will return a 2, right? The index of C would give me 2, the position of that guy in there. But if I search for index of a question mark, or let's do lowercase. If I search for index of a lowercase c, it will not find it in here, right? So it'll spit out a -1. Its position is -1. I did not find it. Make sense? Okay, so this question right here basically says if it is found in there, if this guy right here gave me something other than a -1, it gave me a number between 0 and the length of the thing -1. Go ahead.
Could you use is uppercase?
For the char? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so he's saying there actually is a class, the character class has a class method called isUpper. I think is uppercase. Yeah, is uppercase. That returns true if it's an uppercase letter, false otherwise. You could use that too. Under the hood, it probably does something pretty similar to this. All right, so that's our first if. Then else if, we want to know if it's a lowercase letter. So we'll say alpha lower dot index of C. If that guy is not equal to -1, then we'll return the same thing. Here, I'll include the comment here. It's lowercase, so we'll do the conversion on our lowercase letters. Make sense? Else, if it's not upper and if it's not uppercase and it's not lowercase, what must it be? Something else. Number, space, punctuation, whatever. And what do we do with numbers, spaces, punctuation? Return the exact same thing. So return C. If it's uppercase, convert it. If it's lowercase, convert it. Otherwise, just return it. Make sense? So this is a version of rot13 that now lives in our singleton that I can call from anywhere in my program by saying core.rot13. I can pass it any char, and it will convert that char into a rot13 mapped version of itself. So if it's any letter, upper or lowercase, this will work. If it's anything else, it'll just spit it back out. Say, I don't know what to do with this, so just here's what you gave me back. All right? This works for single characters. Make sense? All right. So now if we go into rot13 large text activity, when they click this button, we want to turn this guy into the converted version of himself. So we'll say string input is equal to that guy, the toString version of input ET. Then we're going to say string, call it maybe answer, is the empty string. We're going to build a new string. All right, so we're going to go through every single character of input, calling rot13 on it, concatenating it onto answer. This is our stock for loop that goes through every character of a string. So int I is equal to 0, I is less than input dot length, I plus plus. And then what am I going to do? I'm going to say answer is equal to answer concatenated with core.rot13, passing it my current character I'm looking at, which is input.charat I. So I'm going to concatenate onto answer, whatever answer currently is, plus the ROT13 version of the current character I'm looking at. If it was a lowercase character, it'll map it. If it's an uppercase character, it'll map it. If it's any other character, it'll just spit it back out. And I'll tack it onto my answer. So after this for loop, I should be able to say this dot output et dot set text to answer. Go ahead.
So when you're like doing that for loop and you're walking through a string, if it's not like a character, so like it's a symbol or something.
Okay. If it's not a letter.
It's not a letter.
Yeah.
Do you have to tell it?
No, because this.
Is it automatic?
Yeah, this guy right here will boil down to whatever char I'm currently looking at bucket I, right?
Okay.
Could be a letter, could be a symbol, could be a space, could be whatever. Some kind of char. It's one of 65,536 unique chars. All right. When I pass that guy to ROT13, it's coming into here and going through this logic right here. And this logic takes in that char, so this guy's going to be one of those 65,536 chars. The first thing he says, is it uppercase? If yes, convert it. Otherwise, is it lowercase? If yes, convert it. Otherwise, just return whatever character you gave me. So this is where it's doing that check.
Oh, right.
Okay? So out here, this guy right here just gets that character. So I have a character, I have a char. I don't need to peek at it to find out what kind of thing it is. I'm just going to toss it to my machine that lives up in core called ROT13. That guy will catch it in a variable called C, and then he'll ask all those questions. Upper, lower, or other. Make sense? Okay, so this guy should be done cooking now. We preheated the oven to 350 degrees. The chocolate chips are nice and melted. I'm glad lunch is coming up soon. And there is our ROT13 version of that. Go ahead.
How efficient is that compared to just giving it a string rather than calling it every single time you have a character? So it has to go to the other file every single time, right?
Correct.
So wouldn't it be more efficient to pass it a string and then just do that once? So it does the for loop inside of the method?
Possibly. I think at the end of the day, it's probably about the same. Yeah, I mean, because all we're doing, what he's doing is he's asking the question of this. He's saying, is it inefficient to call if you have a string with 50 characters in it? Is it inefficient to call ROT13 50 times versus passing ROT13 the entire string and just having this guy go through and have a for loop in here that does the logic 50 times? That might be faster. It's probably a toss-up, because really the question he's asking is how expensive is it to call a function from another class? In this case, I think not very expensive because it's a class method. But under the hood, it probably would be faster passing it a string and just having the loop inside of there, only calling the method once. Okay.
Can you go to the main activity real quick?
This guy?
Yeah.
I just took stuff out of here. Yeah. Yeah. Make sure you understand why. Because I moved ROT13 into core here and I made him static. Now he's a class method that's owned by core. So whenever I want to convert a char to its ROT13 equivalent, I have to say core.ROT13 to call upon that guy. That's where the ability now lives. Go ahead.
So when I was doing my homework, I was getting super confused about like where like functions what class they should be located in.
Mhm.
Kind of walk through like because we keep moving stuff around.
Yep, sure.
So, like what do we want where? Like we put our ROT13 converter now into our singleton.
Yeah, but we didn't have to. So I think this is the question you're asking. So you're saying, like, how do you decide where to put stuff, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, and another question too is, does it matter? I think I put my code for my button in my first page, so like in my main activity.
Yep.
But I think you had it on the other page.
Correct. So what you did is you had, instead of this text box here being on this screen, you had it on this screen and then clicked the button and it took you to that other screen with the decoded version.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's okay. So then what you did is after you so did you decode it on this first screen or did you decode it on the second screen?
I decoded it on my first screen, which takes it to these two.
Okay, so if we go that route, let's look at that. Well, let me explain it at a high level first, and then we'll look at an alternative way of doing it. The logic's going to be identical. It just depends on where we're doing our conversion.
Okay.
All right. So let me draw a picture here to kind of explain this. So this is screen 1. This is screen 2. And of course, screen 2 is green. So that's the only thing that makes sense. All right. So now, as of right now, screen 1, the way we originally wrote it, needs ROT13, right? We convert single chars into other chars on screen 1. Screen 2 also needs ROT13 because we convert an entire string into its ROT13 equivalent, correct? All right, so we have two separate screens here that both need access to that same ability. So we have two options. One option is we can write that ability here in screen 1, get it working, copy the code into screen 2. So ROT13 actually exists in both. That's one option. Now, the problem with doing that, the weakness with doing that, is let's assume you wrote it here, think it works fine, copied the code over here. Then you decide, oh, there's actually a little bug in it. You fix the bug over here, but forget to fix it here. Because you actually have the same code written twice, but it's now almost the same code because you made a little change over here. Make sense? By moving ROT13, so this guy is core. By moving ROT13 up here, we have access to this dude from screen 1 as well as screen 2. So the reason why we put it up in the singleton in this case is because we had two separate screens that needed that same ability. So rather than writing it here and then writing it a second time here, even if we were just copying and pasting, we instead decided to have it written one time up here and then let that guy serve both of these screens. And then if we find a bug, if we're testing on this screen and find a bug, we fix it here, which then also benefits the first screen. Okay. Does that make sense why we could put it in core? Okay, so it's an organizational thing. It's not like right or wrong. Just writing it twice here opens yourself up to some problems. Okay, possible bug problems. Now, if your code isn't doing a whole lot, like we talked about last time, you might want to keep your singleton relatively clean. You could make the argument that you have a function in here that does something small, and you have the identical function here that does something small, and you just copied it in both places with an ultimate goal of keeping core not messy. Okay? But the reason we put it in both places here is, we'll put it in this one place is so both of these guys could share the same code base, share the same logic. All right. So now, next question is why did we put? Where do we put our widgets for doing the conversion? So what she did is on screen 1, she had the big multi-line text box with a button that says convert. Now, did you convert it on this screen, or did you just send that string to this screen and have this screen do the conversion?
So I have the conversion on my first screen.
Okay, so you read it in here.
I'm displaying it on.
Okay, so what she did is she had a big text box here. She had a button. She clicks the button, reads in the string from this text box. She does all of her ROT13 conversion over here. And then in the end, she just sends the answer over to the screen and displays it. Now, if you're doing that, then you can make the argument that you don't need to put ROT13 up in core. Because in actuality, ROT13 is only being used here. Because this second screen for you, all this guy does is receive a string and display it on the screen. That's all he does. He's not doing any conversion. Whereas in my version of this guy, this first screen, has the ability to convert a single char into a ROT13 equivalent. So 1 for 1, kind of testing ROT13. The second screen lets you put an entire string, has a button, and then gives you the fully converted ROT13 version of that string. So both of these screens rely on that ROT13 logic. That's why I moved it up here, so these two guys could share it. Does that make sense? There isn't necessarily a right or wrong answer. As a general rule of thumb, let's get this in the notes. Try not to duplicate code. So if you have a function in one class and the identical function in another class, consider whether you should move that function up to a singleton so that it only exists once. You're not duplicating the logic in two places. Instead, put it in one place and have both of those places access it. That makes sense? But, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, sometimes you might have a function that does something so trivial that you're probably never going to change again. And you maybe already have a bunch of stuff in your singleton. You just decide, I'm not going to make things messier up there. So I'm not going to make things messier up here just to not duplicate some small little function in these two places. We're talking about a function that really doesn't do much. It's not that important. You'll never need it in another place, something like that. You might choose to not follow this rule of thumb, but instead go ahead and duplicate code on this one-time type deal just because it's not really important code. It's just maybe it formats a string or something like that in a very specific way that's only really local to those two screens, and you'll never use it on a different screen. Make some sense? Okay, so at the end of the day, really the answer to your question, the global answer to your question is there really isn't a right or wrong answer. If you draw some pictures and you decide, where am I going to perform what tasks? And then where does it make sense for me to put stuff relative to where I'm performing those tasks? That's the correct place to put it. So because I'm doing ROT13 on two separate screens, it made sense for me to move my ROT13 up here. Because you did all your ROT13 just on one screen, it would not have made sense to move your ROT13 to core. You would have left it just right in here because you did all of your conversion in here, and then you just passed a weird string over to this guy. Make sense? Okay. So more questions about that? All right, so now technically, at this point, I'm telling you this works. But if you're just looking at this on this screen, and you have, our little knock-knock joke, I hit convert, and it gives you something that looks encoded. Just because it looks encoded doesn't mean it's accurately encoded, right? Because I could just do a random character generator, randomly generate characters between 0 and 65,535. And for every character I read in for my first string, just pick a Unicode character at random and make it look jumbled. But my real evidence is I wouldn't be able to go back. Okay, so what we really need is we need another button that maybe does the conversion back the other direction. Okay, and what that guy would do, now, actually the easiest way to do this would, if we just want to test this really quickly without putting more buttons in here and stuff like that, is instead of writing our output to this output ET, we actually overwrite input ET with it. That way we can just keep hitting convert and it'll keep flipping back and forth between converted and not converting. So I can go into my code here, and on this screen, rather than setting output ET to my answer, let's try that again. I'll set input ET to my answer, just overwriting the guy that's already there. All right, so now when I hit convert, it replaces this guy with that. And remember, rod 13 works for both directions, right? So now I can click it again, and there's our knock knock joke, proving that we can encode and decode. All right, so I think is that everything for the homework? All right, so so for the homework, what you really had to do is you had to expand your rot 13 with some additional logic, because you needed to handle upper and lowercase characters, as well as ignore things that aren't either one of those. So we go back to our very early days of programming. How do human beings solve problems? Memory, asking questions, repetition. So we remembered a character that we want to convert. We asked a question. Are you uppercase? If yes, perform that logic we already had. If not, ask the question, are you lowercase? If yes, do our conversion that we already had. Else, just return the thing itself. So we're just asking 3 questions in here. Okay. Over here on this screen, convert button pressed. What do? We read in our input, and here's some repetition. And we're doing string concatenation. So all hard programs are made up of a bunch of easy parts. Okay, so now that you see the solution to this, there really isn't any individual piece of this solution that's all that complex, that's all that bad, right? It's getting all those pieces mushed together in the right order and knowing, okay, I have to do this and I have to do this. And that step comes from slowing yourself down and not asking the question, how do I program this first? Instead, you ask the question, how do I solve this problem? If I have a single character that I want to convert to its rot 13 equivalent, how do I do that as a human being? I look at the character. If it's uppercase, I convert it with the uppercase letters. If it's lowercase, I convert it with the lowercase letters. If it's neither of those, here's your answer. Make sense? Once you understand that human solution to it, then you can go and write the equivalent code, because that's what we just described right here, right? Given a character, if it's uppercase, convert it on the uppercase characters. If it's lowercase, convert it on the lowercase characters. Otherwise, here's your answer. See how that code follows the human solution? Now, many of you probably start off with trying to write code. And you back yourself into a corner and your mind is now separated, right? You're just writing code and you don't even know what problem you're trying to solve. You just start randomly changing things until it just magically works. And at the end you say, okay, I'm not going to touch it anymore because I had 5,000 errors a minute ago. Now I don't, and it seems to work. So I'm done. You had those feelings before? When you're coding, and then you go and not read your 200-page book. Exactly. I play video games. Right. So, and this almost goes back to something that they probably mentioned in 150 rather. What's the first part of problem solving? What's the first step of problem solving? Understanding the problem. Okay. And then you talked about probably algorithms or recipes, something like that. So once you understand the problem, then you have to come up with a solution. We haven't even gotten to code yet. Okay, as a human being, when you have a problem presented to you, you say, okay, how can I solve this? And then you come up with your human version of the solution. Once you fully understand the problem and you fully understand your human version of the solution, then you can go and convert your human version of the solution into Java code or into Python or into C# or whatever language you're using. That makes sense? Your life will be a lot easier as a programmer if you get used to operating like that. Okay. Now, even though you see me jump right into the code, I promise you that that step is occurring. I've just been doing this for a while. So on problems that are smallish like this, I can do that little conversion in my head very quickly and say, this is how I would solve it as a person. Now let's write the equivalent code. Okay. But for most of you right now, you're going to want to purposely take those separate steps so that when you actually get to the code part, you're basically painting by number. Right? You've seen the coloring books that say, here's your colors, draw green wherever it says a 4, that kind of stuff. Because when you actually get to the code, you're not solving the problem anymore. You're writing the Java version of the solution you already have. Okay? Make some sense? All right. So let's look at some other stuff. I want to give you something really, really difficult to do over the weekend because this assignment was too easy, I think.
For you, it is.
How much time do we spend on this assignment?
5 hours.
5 hours?
5 hours.
Anybody got more than 5 hours on the assignment? Well, so 5 hours is pretty good dedication. Anybody spend less than an hour then just gave up? Because that's bad. You don't want to give up. You don't want to just sit there and stare at the code for 15 hours and never make progress either. That's when you start asking for help, right? You go meet with somebody or ask me for help or whatever. But it's good to struggle because during that 5 hours, you went down a whole bunch of bad paths, right? Okay, you fell down the sinkhole. You're like, okay, well, this isn't where I'm supposed to be. Then you erase a bunch of code and say, okay, well, I spent 3 hours on that, but that was not good, right? And you got to back up. So a lot of learning takes place when you're doing stuff like that. Well, yeah, but merge sort's so much fun.
No, it's not.
Really? Oh, I love merge sort. It's a good idea. Maybe we should write merge sort again.
No.
Why are we so afraid of merge sort?
Because it gave us PTSD.
Yeah, but you're your whole semester more experienced now. How bad can merge sort be?
So bad the first time?
As bad as the first time, really?
Yeah.
Actually, it'll be a really interesting experiment to go back to like former students.
See if they can do it.
Because they should. I mean, if we gave them a degree in computer science, they should be able to do merge sort. The good ones would be able to. Cursor, you could write merge sort. Dover could write merge sort.
He can write anything.
I don't know about anything. He's still relatively inexperienced. I mean, I can't write anything. I can just write a lot of things. Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I feel like I could probably write anything that's programmable, but not just sitting here off the cuff. I might have to say that at some point a problem's going to become complex enough. I'm going to have to think about it and go and draw pictures and stuff like that. Otherwise I'll go insane. So everybody's got their level, right? Okay. So what we're going to start looking at now is obviously merge sort. You're going to see merge sort again. I promise you. And when you see it again, it won't be anywhere near as hard. And you'll look back and say, oh, that wasn't that bad. But now it's just ingrained in you. It's like fear factor.
PTSD.
Okay, so we're going to go and learn how to programmatically add stuff to our interface. So we'll at least get the ball rolling here. We're not going to have a lot of time to get too much. So I'll probably just have the threat of a quiz for Tuesday, covering maybe something we talked about today, something like that. So I would spend the weekend going over some of this stuff, but I'll go ahead and get the ball rolling here. And I'm going to create a new activity, and we're going to do an empty activity, and we're going to call this guy, let's call it runtime interface activity. All right, the idea of this is going to be while the program is running, after we hit start and we go to the screen, things will appear on our interface. We create buttons and add them to the interface. We create text fields and add them to the interface, that kind of stuff. Okay, so we'll go ahead and let it generate our layout file, all that stuff. We'll hit finish. Takes us here. I'm going to go ahead and give us a button on our main screen that will get us to that place. So here is our button. So this is, we already have a ROT 13 large text. I'll go ahead and just throw another button in here. And we'll put on this guy runtime interface, something like that. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and in main activity, we'll create a little function for this guy. So this is going to be public void runtime interface button press, takes a view V. We'll create a quick intent. Intent I is equal to new intent. Created from this context and going to runtime interface activity.class. And then this dot start activity. I. Okay. And then we'll come back out to our activity main here and tell that button to call that function. So here's that button. Here's our on click. Here's our runtime interface button pressed. And I'll just go over to our runtime interface guy here, and we'll throw a little text view out here. Just says runtime interface on it for right now, just so we know we got there. We'll hit play, and we'll make sure our button gets us there. Big money, big money. All right, so there we're on that screen. So what we'll do next time is we're going to build some stuff on this screen that allows us to, at runtime, get stuff to appear. Maybe we have a big scroll view thing that has a bunch of text fields that show up in it, that kind of stuff. So we'll look at how to do that. Questions, comments, concerns, bribes. Okay, remember, threat of quiz on Tuesday, something we did today. I will push this code so you have the updated version of this.
Hang on, is it next week?
That's, yeah, next week's the last week of classes.
Does that mean there's not gonna be more students?
You possibly go back to runtime,
Yeah.
the code.
We start reviewing next Tuesday, right?
No, Thursday.
Oh, right.
Where do you want me to go?
Did you create the runtime interface?
No code.
No, and then, oh, it's main activity I wanted to see. Where
Did you get your homework done yesterday?
I mean,
Yeah, this
it
guy.
didn't work, but I heard something, yes.
That's all I
I
added.
got most of it.
But does it help, like, to move you one from one?